There are really three pillars. Before I actually get into the demonstration, I just want to summarize. The first is simplicity, efficiency, and security. Payments should be simplistic in an ERP. In this case, Autopart efficiency, minimizing the cost to serve, driving speed to serve, and doing these as securely as possible. So bear these three pillars in mind as I proceed through the demonstration. So I've gone ahead and signed into Autopart. I've already taken the liberty of filling out a point of sale screen. So the scenario is, this customer walks into your store, purchasing a brake pads in this example. So they've gone ahead. We've identified who they are. We selected the parts in this case that they wanted to take home with them, back to their office, I should say, back to their shop. So I go ahead and click on the sell button. Same process hasn't changed. However, what we have done now is we've added a button for Klipboard Money. So as I mentioned in this case, customer walks in, purchases the brake pads, and has a card in hand. So what happens is they go ahead and there's a terminal that's associated to, in this case, the cashier. And the customer says, I'd like to buy this product. So what I can do is say, okay, but I have a device. And it now says the payment is ready to go. So I go ahead. And I've been approved, and the transaction is complete. What's now happened behind the scenes is that we've actually created an invoice. And this happens to be an example of what you may have. Again, this is configurable by you, but the most important aspect of this particular invoice is the bottom section, which details all of the card payment information, the date of the transaction, the card related, and the fact that this invoice has automatically been posted to the customer's account. And we'll see that in a few minutes, when I go through another example. Now let's consider this where a customer calls you. So the scenario is they don't have card in hand because they're not actually in the store. So they pick up the phone, they give you a call. So here again, going through and just adding another transaction. We'll use the brake pads again as my product. And in this case, what's happening is they're on the phone. So you validate that. Of course you want one brake pad set. Yes, I do. How are you going to pay? I'm going to pay by credit card. Well, right back in the day before Klipboard Money, what would you end up doing? You'd end up taking their card number over the phone, writing it down, or typing it into another system. But in my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take advantage of Klipboard Money's pay by link functionality. What this does is it now identifies who the customer is. So I'm going to actually send, in this case myself, an email. However, the email has been associated to the customer account, in this case A010. You can override the default, but the point being is I can easily send off this link, and the email has been generated what the customer receives on their end. And we're going to go through this process. So I'm going to go ahead and quit out. Here's an example of the invoice that is generated. And there really are two facets. More than likely, this would be generated as a PDF incentive the client. But in my case, you can see here's the link. We'll actually go through this. And you'll also notice at the very bottom that we've also embedded a QR code. So we're giving the client the customer options as far as how they prefer to pay. They can use our link or take advantage of the QR code. In my case, I'm going to choose the former. So I'm going to go into my email. So here's the link that was sent. And as you can see, embedded in the email is the QR code and the actual link that is active. So what I'm going to do at this point, again, putting myself in the shoes of the client, the customer, I can easily open up that link. and it's going to present me with the screen that allows me to choose how I want to pay. It can be Google Pay in this case, or a card in my case. I'm going to use a card, my credit card. Now take note that this card is only for demonstration purposes, so I'm going to go ahead and enter the card number. And this is on the client side, the expiration date. Security code. The name on the card, Maestro. The region, United States. It's Illinois. And click on Pay. Payment has been successful. And from the client side, two things are happening. The first is that of course the transaction is complete. The second is they will actually get a follow-up email sent from Klipboard Money stating that their transaction is officially complete and their product is on its way. So as I go back into Autopart and I open up the account inquiry screen in Ledgers, I'm going to go ahead and look up the account number here. As I scroll down through all of my transactions, here is that invoice that's posted to the ledger via a pay by link. And if I wanted to pursue it further, I could. In this case, it has been paid and automatically posted to the account. No human intervention except to enter the card details. So now let's go through another scenario, which unfortunately happens in reality. And that is, the customer says I need to return product, and we need to initiate a credit against their account. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into Autopart itself, and in this case, initiate a credit. So here I am, I'm the operator. The customer is going to be A010, and now what I'd like to do is initiate a credit against a pay by link. Now there's a couple of ways this can happen. The first is, can initiate it against an existing pay by link, in which case they haven't paid it, so it's just going to void that transaction. The other scenario is they've paid it, and now they want money back. What we will do within Autopart, put more money, is automatically create that credit transaction against that payment. And then the third is they paid by their credit card. We will initiate, of course, a credit against their card if they were in store. So I'm going to go ahead and select the invoice I'm interested in. So I will go ahead and select that here. And I'm going to choose the invoice. Let's use 93 as an example. So here's that invoice. I'm going to say, OK. I'm going to pick this invoice. Now credit requests against the invoice and display that actually say, OK. And so now the credit reason, why are they returning product? Because it's the wrong part, in which case stack will be updated. Or all of these are configurable reason codes that you can set up on your own. These happen to be examples. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in credit reason code 1. And the quantity I'm crediting is the full amount of the line item in this case. And go ahead and click Credit. And the Pay by link has been canceled in this scenario due to the fact that the client had not paid the link. If in fact they had, we would then initiate a credit against their payment automatically. And here's the credit that has been created. So the next scenario I'd like to take you through very quickly is the idea of ad hoc. So let's say in my example, my customer, in this case, A010 Koreans Auto Service, is nearing their credit limit. And what I want to do is I want them to pay the bill, and they've been delinquent. So within Ledgers, Account Inquiry, you will see the Pay by Link option. So I can easily select that. I can enter the value that I'd like them to pay so that their credit limit, they're not as close to nearing their credit limit as they were prior. Let's do $150. The amount that will be allocated can be determined by you to various transactions or by the customer if they choose, and that's a decision on your part. So, I'm going to say $150. Here is the payment amount. And here is the reference pay bill. And say OK. And here again, I'll Pay by Link will be set to the client. The final scenario is very simple, and that is, you generate statements monthly. And as a result, those statements too can be paid by a Pay by Link. So as the statements are generated, which I will do very quickly here. Okay, back into Ledgers. So now, as I mentioned here, I am generating my monthly statements to my clients. You will notice here that we have a Pay by Link option that has now been added. You can see the customer that I am going to be generating the statement for. What's going to happen here is that it is now going to go ahead and create a Pay by Link for each of those payment buckets. $0 to $30, $31 to $60, and $61 to $90, etc. There will be individual links that will be created and sent to the client that they can choose to pay balance in full or select from that list of items. So I will go ahead and say yes here. And here is the statement that will be generated. And the process is completed. So in summary, but thank you for your time. The beauty of Klipboard Money is fourfold. In fact, more and a month reconciliation time reduced dramatically or eliminated. Every payment is automatically matched to the correct invoice. No guesswork, no chasing. Integrated terminal pushes the correct invoice amount to the device, making manual keying errors virtually impossible. And then finally, the remote customer can now pay by link through a secured network.